So when we're talking about losing fat, building muscle, reaching really any kind of fitness goals, it's like anything that you do in life to track something that is a measurable thing, right? So we need to make sure that we are tracking certain data points in order to make sure that we are progressing forward. And we can also use this as a holistic approach to make sure that we aren't making short, rash decisions that is going to ultimately keep us from our goals in the long run. And the best way that I can put this into, an analogy is like, if you're having a project for, work, or, your boss asks you to do something, you would never not have anything, to track. Like if you're working on a project, you're going to have something to track to make sure that, it's done on time, but you're doing it correctly, meets certain, requirements. Like you're always going to have data points to track. If we don't have any data points to track when we're trying to reach our health and fitness goals, how are we going to know if what we're doing, is working, if we are, continuing to move forward towards our goals? You would have literally, no idea. So there are 4 major data points that I think you have to track in order to make sure that you can use those all together to make sure that you're moving forward. So the first thing would just be weekly progress photos. When we are talking about body recomposition, we're really talking about leaning out, building muscle, trimming fat. So we can't rely completely on the scale. This is the first mistake that people make when they are using data points to track their progress. They will simply use the scale, and that is a really poor unit of measurement in terms of reaching progress in terms of body composition. Main reason being is that as I start to trim fat, I will lose weight. But as I start to build muscle or maintain muscle mass, I will then start to gain weight via muscle mass. So I could lose 5 or 6 pounds on the scale, but in reality, I've lost 10, 12, 15 pounds of fat, which is a huge, huge difference, but I've also gained 3 or 4 or 5 pounds of muscle, right? So the net difference there would be 8 or 10 pounds when you might think, well, I wanted to lose 20 pounds or 30 pounds. So the scale doesn't really tell the whole story. The scale and progress photos will. So you can very clearly see, and I've, posted many kind of photos. I've gone over them on my YouTube channel, my Instagram, of people that are weighing essentially the same weight, but they look completely different. So you have to take progress photos as well. Now, the second thing would be daily weight. Now, I know that I literally just said that daily weight doesn't tell the whole story in terms of progress, but we use weight with our progress photos to give us an idea of if we're trending in the right direction, if we are, gaining weight, because whether I'm in a build phase or a burn phase, I don't necessarily want to gain a ton of weight, right? If fat loss is my goal, I don't want to gain a ton of weight. So with our progress photos and with daily weight, if we're going through a burn phase or a build phase, we don't want to see the weight of the scale go down very, very, very quickly. This is also a mistake that people will make because they aren't tracking these data points. If the scale goes down too quickly, that means we're eating too little, our metabolism is being burned to the ground, and we don't want to do that. We want to see the weight go down each week, a pound, half pound a week, very consistently and slowly. Same thing if we're in a build, we want to see that go up very consistently and slowly. If we're in a reverse, we might gain a few pounds, but don't want to see it spike up or spike down too low, right? So these are 2 very powerful tools that we could use to collect data to make sure that we are progressing in the right direction. Now, the third thing that is super important to track is nutrition or calories. And I have a kind of a slash in there because you could go kind of, a few different ways with this. If you're tracking nutrition, right, there's nutrition targets that I think that you should try to hit. You should try to hit protein every day, vegetables every day, fruits every day, and then, besides that, probably like nuts, and then a whole grain or starchy vegetable, something along those lines, right? But you should be tracking that, making sure that you're hitting those 4 or 5 kind of, main food groups from a just a health standpoint, because no matter if, we're saying, calories is the only thing that matters. We still want to feel good. You still want your body to run the most optimal. So you're still going to have to kind of keep track of those things, right? But a lot of people will think they're eating more than they actually are, or less than they actually are, right? Typically, people that are trying to eat less are typically eating more. Now, you could also be eating less, and that's not really what you need to be doing. You need to be in a build phase rather than a burn phase, but that's kind of a different topic. Is you have to have an understanding of how many calories you're consuming each day in order to have an idea of where your current metabolism is, if I need to add calories, from where I need to go from there. So it doesn't have to be every single day, but a handful of days a week, I need to know exactly how many calories I'm eating so I can make an educated decision on what I need to do in order to reach my goals. The fourth thing would be physical activity or steps. Now, everyone works out and moves throughout the day more than someone else. For example, I had a client that I was training recently that is in a fat loss phase, but she wants to start training for running longer distances, and she wants to start training for some marathons coming up because that's what she wants to do. So within that fat loss phase, rather than continuing to kind of drop her calories and try to get down a little bit, she's going to start to add running in. That's more physical activity. That's something that's going to burn calories. What we are not going to do is then subtract more calories on top of the actual physical activity that she's already doing. So the fourth thing would be physical activity or steps. So one thing that I'm not going to do is, if I'm training 3 days a week and then I want to start adding in some extra cardio and everything, I'm not going to continue to drop calories if my physical activity is going to increase, right? So we need to be aware of, that's why it says steps, is because my physical activity is directly correlated with how many calories I burn each week. So somebody that works out 2 days a week, somebody that works out 4 days a week, the person that working out 4 days a week is going to burn more calories. So they inherently wouldn't have to be in as much of a calorie deficit, and they might have a more active job. They might walk around more. They might hit more steps. So keeping track of our steps, keeping track of how much physical activity we're actually doing each and every day is going to be a real big factor in terms of like how many calories you need to eat in order to build, how many calories you need in order to burn as well. And then fifth one, kind of an extra one here, is sleep, right? So I need to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night, solid sleep. I have to have a good bedtime routine. I have to make sure that I can track that, and you can simply track what time am I going to bed, what time am I waking up, look back on, write it down in the notes up on your phone, some way to track your sleep, making sure that you're getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. Because if you're getting 4 to 5 hours, 6 hours of sleep a night, your recovery is going to be trash. You're not going to have enough energy to actually train then, and then that's going to cause more stress on the body. So getting track and tracking sleep is going to help take your results to the next level, because you have more energy, you are de-stressed, you are taking stress off the body by getting more sleep. You're adding stress by getting less sleep. So those are kind of the 5 points that you have to track in order to make sure that you are reaching your goals. If you're not tracking these things and you're just doing random workouts, if you're just not tracking sleep, you're not tracking calories, you don't know what weight is, you're not doing progress photos, like you're not really taking into account all of those things that go together like a melting pot in order to get you from point A to point B. So make sure that you are tracking those things, make sure that you are logging them, writing them down, and that will ultimately, in the end, lead you to long-term success. Thing that I did forget to mention was a structured strength training program. So just like all the other ones, if I don't have a well-rounded training program, if I don't know how much weight I lifted for this exercise compared to how much weight I did for this exercise, how many reps I did, how much weight I did, that way we can lift more, we can do more reps, we can progressive overload. Really, you could change this and put progressive overload. but you have to be sure that you are getting stronger, you are lifting more weight. It doesn't matter what that is. And it doesn't have to be deadlift, it doesn't have to be bench press, but tracking your strength training, tracking your progress with that is going to just further the fact that you are building muscle, building lean muscle, and toning out, and then also shedding fat. So as the scale starts to go down, if we're eating enough protein, if our lifts aren't going down, we can solidly kind of conclude that we are maintaining muscle mass in order to get us to our goals. So we have to make sure that we are following a structured training program that is tracking your lifts, how much weight you're doing, and how many reps you are doing as well. So these are kind of the 6 main points that I think you have to track in order to make sure that you are progressing forward. Remember, if you're not tracking any kind of data points, then you're not going to be able to move forward and track and make sure that you are making actual tangible progress, because you might be making progress and you might not even know about it, or you might not be making any progress and it's because you're not tracking any kind of data to give you a reason as to why you're not, or a reason as to maybe you are.